Good introduction, that. It's up for your head.
Has it started? Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a heads up, Nick.
Starting like that, are we?
Yeah, I hope so. Dad jokes. That's because
Old
Sky's
school.
not here to bring
Old
us.
school today, isn't it?
What?
Old school today.
This is because Sky's not here to bring us to be more relevant and young-minded. Yeah, so it is old school. So expect it to be more serious.
Ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. How to sell to a small online audience.
That's not the first question, see, it's already fucked.
I'm going with this one. How to sell to a small online audience, which is 60 on the email list, 550 Instagram followers. Would you focus on speaking to everyone still on there, or focus more on engagement and starting conversations?
Both. Like, if my objective is to sell, I have to be led by A, the audience of who I want to sell to, and B, the outcomes that audience really wants and needs. So I would, regardless of the size of the audience, clearly it matters because then, analogy wise, there's more people in the shop to buy, isn't there? The more people are on there, but it doesn't mean to say that you can't sell there. Personally, and hopefully I'm answering this question the way you just asked it, but personally, I would be very, very audience and outcome heavy, so I can be very, very specific and provide quality to that audience. So hopefully that's an audience on there that you have marketed to for a specific reason. It's not loads of different people, but yeah, I would be laser focused on the outcomes of that, what that audience wants. I would make sure that I make it clear that I understand what their objections are with what it is that I'm delivering. I would make sure that I overcome any misconceptions they have, any barriers that they have, and I would make sure that I do a mix of both in what you just asked from the question perspective. I want to do things that will engage them, that will get them commenting, replying to emails, and all of that type of stuff, and do things that's going to help them raise their hand and say that, yeah, I'm interested in that, or I want that. So in regards to trying to sell, personally, that's the approach that I would make. And the last point on this is I would create myself a structure so I would be super clear with it. So for argument's sake, on a Monday, I'm covering X, and that's focused on engagement. On a Tuesday, I'm covering Y, and that's focused on rest in something that I'm trying to get back from. On Wednesday, I am generating awareness or attention on what it is I'm doing. So I'd give myself some themes for my content and my emails to make me stick to the strategy of, if I'm selling, this is the strategy of how I'm going to help bring sales into my business. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yes, it does answer me.
Well, I feel like I went around the houses a bit, but you know what I mean. That was loud. If you could work out, mate, turn your notifications off right now.
Tick, tick. Going mental.
If you could work out with one pro athlete, dead or alive, current or retired, who would it be and why?
Did we have a similar question to this last week? I said Ross Edgley.
A pro athlete.
A pro athlete. Do you know what? I think it would actually be someone in MMA.
Okay.
GSP.
That's a really good shout. Well done with that.
Yeah, I think GSP.
That's a fantastic shout.
Thank you, Anthony.
Never even would have entered my head that.
He's he's not just a brawler, is he? He was and still is like an athlete. So I remember watching some of his training like years ago when he was still fighting. He always looked ahead of where everyone else was in regards to the way he trained. So yeah, I think him.
Do you know, well, training MMA fighters is I think for a strength conditioning coach or any coach is probably 10 times more entertaining and enjoyable than training, say, someone in football, for example. Because although you obviously do the same similar strength conditioning principles, I think you've got a broader amount of principles that you can use across MMA because of the wide-ranging fucking side of the sport than you would be as specific as football. So I think you're right. I think someone within MMA would be a good choice because it'll test you big time as well. And But I was thinking about who are the greatest athletes of all time. Like you obviously think about like people like Michael Jordan, you think about Muhammad Ali.
But
Who
there's
else?
difference, I think, as well, isn't there? I think there's a big difference between skill and an athlete. Like Michael Jordan, you can get to a certain point, but his was skill, wasn't it? His was
Hmm,
developed as skill, and I think that I look at that quite differently than someone like I'm just trying to think now.
Usain Bolt.
No, like because that was we could probably say a hell of a lot of that is genetics and just a freak of nature, like in regards to how his body was built and his stride, all that kind of stuff. But I would actually say someone like who is the heptathlete, the English.
Jess
What's it?
Ennis.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
what?
Mate,
Because
mate, a story about her. When I was on an internship in this would have been about 2011, and I went to the English Institute of Sport, and I basically just gave my time away for free and I watched the full session, an S&C session with her, and we all had to. Mate, it was fucking one of the best moments of my whole career. That as a coach, she's fucking unbelievable.
well, her because she went from she wasn't like she's obviously very gifted, but where she came from to then win, that was through hard work, developing her weaknesses. Do you know what I mean? So I look at that as like an athlete who has progressed versus someone who just comes in who has an immense amount of God given ability and talent and body type and whatnot. I look at that quite differently. Like a Usain Bolt, not to say he didn't work hard because you got to, but there's obviously advantages there versus someone who's kind of been on that edge of being the best in the world and kind of building to that. I look at that slightly differently.
Suppose. Have you? This is really random. Now we're going off in my tangents. Have you ever seen that King Richard film?
No.
It's about Serena Venus Williams' dad. Yeah, yeah. So I was just thinking about them as like athletes, and I know that's playing into that what you just said about guys with being a skill, but from a mentality perspective, fucking imagine training them.
Mm,
Beasts, aren't they?
mm.
Good question. That could talk about that stuff all day. Whose question is it?
How to manage expectations around getting 1 million clients in January. Feel like it's so easy to get in your own head when you potentially see other PTs in your gym with half new members and assume they have loads of new people. It can make you feel like they're doing everything right. You have no idea what you're doing, even when it's not the case.
So the first thing that I would say is try and limit the amount of influence people are having on you and your own thoughts and limiting beliefs. So whether that is being in an environment less or seeing an environment less, seeing all of that, because it's highly likely what you're seeing isn't true. Yes, people might get new clients, but you just really don't know what's going on inside that business at all, and all of that type of stuff. So it's utterly pointless for you to assume. So I would try and limit the amount of things that get inside your head and cut some habits that it makes you do that. I think I see a lot of personal trainers who potentially go through a period of spending a lot of time on their phones or more time on their phones because of social media, because it's a marketing period. And because you're in a marketing period, your screen time is a lot higher. So therefore, you're probably seeing a lot of other people looking as though they're doing well and all of that type of stuff. And that can take away from yourself. And I think that whole consuming anyway can not help with these thoughts like massively. I also think you've got absolutely no control over that. Focus on, I know it's cliche saying, but focus on what you can control. And I think if you're going through patches of feeling like a little bit like you're not clear on what it is that you are doing, for me, that says that you need to provide yourself with a bit more time to get clear. Maybe that right now you're in this, and I think this is easy done in January, you're in this busy fool scenario of where you feel like you've got to be busy. The world's telling you you need to be busy. So you're making yourself busy, but you're not fucking clear on what direction you're going off the back of that busyness. So I think for me, it's getting super clear on what it is that your success looks like to you, how you're going to measure that, and what are the actions that need to laser focus in on that, because then everything else is just fucking noise that you don't need to worry about. So for me, that's what that says. And I've definitely been guilty of that in the past. It's going, right, I've got all of these things to do, I've got a massive to do and all of that. And you just become a massively busy fool and not a prioritized person in regards to going, these are the things that I'm working towards, and these are the things that I need to take action on. Everything else is just fucking noise, as I've just said. Anything you would say on that?
No, I'd agree.
How are you doing, Nick? That's the next question. How are you doing?
I'm a bit tired today, which isn't unusual for a Monday. But I'm okay, I'm all right.
It's a nice question, was it? Asking about us, Nick, for once. Oh my God. This check-in next is like a Bible.
If you could only listen to one artist for the rest of your life, and you have to say only one, who would it be?
Artist?
Artist.
Right, it's like a singer. Or, I'm going to be really predictable here, but I think Oasis is timeless. I think they're just timeless. So I'm going to be really predictable mank, and say Oasis.
Next.
One sec, because I'm doing it on my computer. Everything's much slower. Whose question are we on? Near.
Yes.
One sec. Is it what if you have one-to-one clients? Right. What if you have one-to-one clients who aren't interested in goal setting or moving to small group PT, but have been with you for ages? They are great at getting workouts done. They show up for their sessions and for themselves, but goalless and just prefer to talk to you. Good question, this. Pressure's on.
The first thing I would say is what you're getting back, the responses you're getting back is probably from how you're positioning the questions. Like, don't get me wrong, like we all fall into this because you have, especially with long-standing clients, you have a certain type of language, communication type, style. And so if you haven't visited that for a long time, that's probably what you're going to get back most of the time, I would say. So I think you've got to think of ways outside the box of getting them to think. Everyone's got goals. Now, those goals have some more priorities than others at different points in times. But goalless is no, they're not goalless. You have to, I wouldn't say dig deeper, but I would say change your approach on how you're asking that. That's probably the first point of call is like, right, sorry, I'm getting distracted by bloody notifications. So I think the first thing is definitely doing that. Whether that is maybe challenging them within the sessions in a slightly different way and steering the goal setting or steering that type of conversation around that, if they're good in sessions, they enjoy it, they turn up. I would say maybe focus on that a little bit, and then build that kind of conversation out to overall goals. People are going to have different points, maybe rewording. Oh my God, bloody notifications. I can't get away from it. Where was I? Lost my train of thought. What was I saying then? Yeah, I think everybody's got goals in regards. They wouldn't be turning up and doing it. I think I would definitely. Oh, that was what it was. Sometimes maybe reframing the word goal to aims, objectives, focus, simple things like that might change people's angle on it a little bit. But I definitely feel that the approach you're having, you need to change and alter. Otherwise, you're going to get the same responses. So, yeah, I would start with recognizing how you're positioning that. And sometimes I'm going to take a bit of a pun and kind of go and suggest that maybe the way you approached it was quite direct, i.e., would you like a goal setting session? It's a closed question, first of all. So they haven't done it. They're not sure what the outcomes are. They might not feel comfortable doing that, even if they have good relations with you. I think that's the first thing. Maybe start with open questions, and it might not be directly relatable to goals, but maybe it leads to that point where you might have a conversation, and also recognize that it's going to be a bit of a process. Probably won't come off one question. So that might sound like, how do you feel your progress has gone in the gym over the last few months? It might sound like rating themselves on their effort in the gym or their progression on the gym, or actually maybe sending them an anonymous few questions that they can fill in, and maybe without you standing there listening to them. So I think there's a couple of different approaches you can take there. What's right is going to be probably different for slightly each one of them, maybe. But yeah, that's where I would start with that. And the same goes for small group PT. If I ask a question, a direct question, a closed question, they don't know what it is, they haven't experienced it. more often than not, that's going to probably be a no. So again, I would change my approach on that as well. Anything you'd add or take away? You'd think so, Anthony. I've said a lot today, I've noticed. How would you future-proof your lead gen for moving into your own small private facility? This is a long way for me, but if I'm marketing, had to move away from the gym floor interactions and having members constantly walking in the door, I would worry about where my leads would come from.
So I predominantly focus on similar things to what you should be focusing on now. So the first one would be that I would maximize from the facility that I'm in right now, I would maximize the audience in that facility and drive them to my email list as much as I possibly could. So I would have, if I had the vision of going into a small private facility, I would absolutely have a low barrier kind of interaction activity and lead magnet that's going to drive a volume of leads into your business every month. And I would heavily focus on that. Fucking bin men are here again. You hear him?
Yeah, I did actually.
Right, noisy bastards they are. So I would focus on that. That needs to be a non-negotiable for any PT, regardless. It's just if I've got this vision of, I've said the story before, I left the fitness first and went into a small private facility with 3 mates, basically. And the biggest fuck up I made was only valuing lead generation like this, probably for the last year I was in that fitness first, when I could have done it for the 5 years prior and left with thousands upon thousands of leads that worked or lived in and around the facility that I went in. So that was a huge fuck up. And anyone in a commercial gym, especially, not doing that now in terms of interaction and lead magnet, then you need to come to the lead generator on Thursday and see how you do it. Because for me, that's one of the biggest things missing. The next thing that I would do is, and obviously that is primary marketing, so that's me going around doing it in classes, all of that. If I run out of time, then obviously I'm going to rely on secondary marketing like pop-ups and posters. And the other version of marketing that I would get to as quick as you can is finding a budget for ads to target the local area. So then you've just got this traffic and pool of leads coming to your email list that you can constantly use to warm up, ready for whether it's announcements of campaigns, new launches, or announcing your gym in the future. So that's how I would do it. And I'm pretty certain the person asking this is probably 70% of their, if they're organized with their lead gen now, with the majority of things that I've just said. So yes. Anything you'd add to that, Nicholas?
No, ads, definitely.
What books on business would you recommend to read?
What am I reading now? Second. 1 second. I am reading.
Take your time. Fucking hell.
Ready, Aim, Fire. Ready, Fire, Aim. That's the one. Ready, Fire, Aim.
Ready, Fire, Aim?
Yeah, Ready, Fire, Aim. That's a good kind of business book, general business. There's one called The Psychology of Money. I think it's very good to get your head around learning about money. From a coaching perspective, I would read A Key Person of Influence. I would read Motivational Interviewing in Nutrition and Fitness. I would read 16-word sales letter. So that's marketing. That's enough. There you go.
Next.
Yeah. Question there. I do apologise for the listeners. Here you go. How to overcome fear of failure.
For me, the most important thing to do with this is reframe it completely. Because I think if you reframe it in terms of, instead of seeing things as failure, see them as feedback, I think it's hugely important, because you'll start to train your mind into going, actually, if this isn't going to go well, that's fine, because I've learned this, and this for next time. I think that's quite empowering in a sense of leaving you to, I suppose, stop being so demotivated and hard on yourself, and for it to affect your self-limiting beliefs, because you are in quote unquote going to fail at certain things. And I think so I can only go off my mindset change with that throughout experience and life that's happened. The biggest shift and the most positive shift is seeing it as a positive, of going, actually, if that's not worked out, cool. What's the feedback? The feedback is probably didn't do this, and this. And if that's the case, that's fucking amazing, because I know for next time that I can do better and implement them things. So I think for me, the biggest thing about overcoming the fear of failure is is completely reframing it. And then once you start to reframe it as feedback, I think you can go at things in a more positive way and kind of, I don't want to sound like fucking David Goggins here, but go and chase it a little bit. So you can constantly chase action on certain things that would normally go, oh shit, I can't do that because I'm worried about failing and all of that type of stuff. Listen, I think the biggest mindset shift for me with this was, and I'm not telling everyone to go out there and have kids, but that was the biggest one, because you talk your kids through certain things and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? So you could constantly call yourself out on that stuff. But for me, it's not failure, it's feedback. It's constant feedback. Brilliant, I've learned today. Brilliant, that's feedback to say, actually, you didn't work hard enough, or brilliant, that's feedback to say, actually, if you just tweak this and that, that's probably going to go well. So for me, that's one of the most important fundamental ways to do it. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'd agree massively. I think it's an all or nothing approach, isn't it, sometimes, in the way that we look at things. So I would say the same thing. I think it's difficult, isn't it, sometimes, because you kind of, depending what type of personality you are, like gamifying things and looking at things as an experiment is difficult, because obviously things don't give you back what you expect. You're obviously going to feel a little bit demotivated and whatnot. But like I think that's the biggest thing, is learning and taking things from it that you can move forward with, and not facing into that as well. I think is really important, and having those hard conversations and reality checks is good, because it gives you direction, it gives you feedback, and the worst place in the world to be is have no feedback and have no direction and dip your toe in, not get anything, and use that as a kind of scapegoat for next time. Do you know what I mean? Not trying. So yeah, I'd agree.
It's that third person in the coaching scenario. If you use this with clients, it works quite well. But like, what advice would you give someone else in that scenario? Like, so let's say for argument's sake, is you've got something that you're a bit worried about, and that's why it's stopping you from taking action. Let's say a friend was doing it and going through something similar. What advice would you give them? Because I guarantee it's the advice that you need to take yourself and therefore go and do. So that kind of works well with clients, that as well, by the way. Yeah, I was going to add something else to that then. The only thing that I was going to add is it's very easy for us to have that negative thought and negative self-talk. And I think sometimes, especially when you're a self-employed person, you can get in your own head a hell of a lot. But I think sometimes what will help you attack failure, quote unquote failure, like, is seeing how far you've come. Like, what are the successes that you've had, and what's telling you that you will fail? Because I'm pretty certain that there'll be nothing giving you evidence to say that you will fail. So yeah, I'll just add them 2 points, Nick. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Next.
Peak time for misinformation just now. How could we help our clients to navigate the ever-growing volume of misinformation out there? Any tips there? I know it's a tough ask. It definitely is if you're asking Nick.
I think do some research on what information is out there and kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit. Instead of waiting for people to kind of grab onto information, try bits, and then kind of be swayed by different things. So I'd probably get ahead of the curve a little bit, to be honest with you, on those bits of misinformation, on those new product, services, bits and pieces that are out there, and be open and honest with your clients. Like, that's something to maybe go head on with. Talk to them about it, like do some additional podcast sessions, videos, posts, WhatsApp messages, blah, blah, blah. Like, go head on with it, I would say. Yeah, and give some kind of rationale and some reason behind it, like I know you would. But I think that's the first thing you can do, is get out there, get in front of it a little bit, definitely. Because let's be honest, the misinformation isn't new misinformation. It's just stuff that's packaged up differently. So, yeah, I would get ahead of it. Anything you would add to that, Anthony Parr? Good interactive gym floor lead gen ideas.
I could split this up into 3 ways, and the reason why it's fresh is because I'm fucking planning this session on Thursday. But 3 ways. The first one is maybe games on the gym floor. So like this or that games where you ask a series of questions and they just give you their preferences. It's an easy interaction tool. If they do it, you can give them something like a lead magnet, for example. Guess the Weight is a really good interactive tool. Like I used to use that as a really good example to make. I actually used to love making them PTs who were negative about gym floor lead gen, turn them round in one of them workshops in Pure Gym to go and do this and see what could be done in like 20 minutes. So like Guess the Weight, which is that you throw loads of weights or certain different things, sandbags, kettlebells, dumbbells, whatever in an area, spin someone around 5 seconds. If they enter, they get a free upper body program, lower body program, whatever it is that your lead magnet is. Another fun one was that Play Your Calories Right. People fucking absolutely buzzed off that and got loads of leads. True or false games. Like, think about the stuff that are used on stories, interactive tools on stories like polls, this or that, all of that. It works in person and even better in person because you can connect and build relationships. So just have a bit of fun. True or false games about myths. Someone was just asking then about the question around misinformation. Maybe you could do a true or false misinformation game on the gym floor. You could have a really good laugh with that. I used to do like a memory challenge where I used to put a program together of different movements in a program. So it might be a back squat, it might be an RDL, it might be a chest press, whatever, and then move them around. And then they had to guess the sequence that it was in and all of that. It was just easy ways. The best that I used to use this quite a lot in courses that I used to teach. The best analogy that I can give you with an interaction activity is to think about radios. Like radio stations have competitions where they have the simplest and easiest questions to make people think, I know the answer to that. And everyone fucking messages in and gives their email, their phone number, and pays £1.50. And the reason for that, it's such a low barrier to get them in as a lead. Same goes for Wi-Fi in wherever. It's just an easy way to get a lead. So think easy things. So they're games. You could do challenges all day, whether it's hang tough, whether it's plank challenge, anything like that. Or there's the other simple things like questionnaires and surveys as well that go well for people who probably don't like doing the games or challenges. So is that enough, Nick?
That'll suffice. And what else, Ant? Come on Thursday.
Yeah, just come on Thursday and I'll sort it out for you, pals.
This one's for you. Question for Ant. Now, bearing in mind, right, we ain't got all day here. What is your purpose? If you were to put it into a concise, coherent mission statement, thought I'd give you some accountability, as you said you would think about it at the conference.
My purpose is my kids. Like, first and foremost, my purpose are my kids and my family and provide. Whose phone's going off?
It's bloody tick-tick, isn't it?
Not fucking about, man. This is an important question. Right, to get deep here.
Come on.
My purpose, my kids, and my family, everything I do is for them first and foremost. And I think the second purpose, without me going on, is to have a really big impact on people within the things that I enjoy having impact on people with, which is this environment around making you a better coach or supporting you to be a better coach. I find that is really impactful because I'm not just impacting you, I'm impacting the clients that you have in your business, and that's important for me. And that's a real big purpose of mine. And then same for the stuff that I do outside of here, like another coaching business and impacting children in sport and all of that. So yeah, I would say that they're my three main, well, it's two, isn't it, that kind of captures the whole of it, really. It's just having a big impact, and then my main purpose will always be my kids and my family. Everything I do is for them. So, well, I got quite emotional, didn't it? Quite deep. Can we go on to the next question, please? I'm quite uncomfortable here, Nick.
Go on.
NA. Oh, now it's logged me out.
Yeah.
Back in. 1 second. U&A. If an ad is performing poorly, would you pull it or edit it and keep it running?
A lot of variables behind this, and obviously we've called this person. So generic kind of answer is, first of all, depend on the objective of the ad, time frame. But generally, edit and carry on. Generally, I would edit and carry on. But I think there's a lot of the first things you'd probably edit is the copy and the creative. Those are probably the first things. But the different metrics will tell you what you probably need to focus on. But it's always going to come off the objective of the ad. Like, for example, a lot of people I think when you first start doing ads, especially like lead ads, 'cause that's probably one of the ones that most of our industry will use more of. You can get quite caught up by the cost per lead and how many leads you get in, but then you can have a hell of a lot of leads come in, but not a lot of them qualify and not a lot of them doing anything afterwards. So it's always going to come off the objective, but generally it would be looking at click-through rates, looking at cost per click, first of all, what the objective of the ad is, and then I would edit and then move on, but using that information to know what to edit. In a very short, snappy answer, because there's a lot to that. Next one down is would you rather one, here we go, being incredible at lead gen marketing and always get clients in but lose them because you're a shit PT, or two, be incredibly knowledgeable, barely get clients but keep them because you were sick at your job?
I'd rather be sick at my job than shit at it, if I'm honest. So I think first and foremost is you have to be good at what you do, or progressively working on getting good at what you do. So for me, if it's just would you rather one or two options, I would rather number two. Yeah, you've got to be fucking good at your job. It's about as simple as that. How do you deal with clients who don't do anything that you suggest for them? Even when asking questions and they come up with the actions themselves, they still don't follow through.
Okay. Sounds like you doing the right approach in regards to getting them to come up with the actions. I think look at what the next steps are past that. Like, again, like most people will kind of know what to do. They'll probably know the kind of common sense answers and the logical things to do next. But then I think as a coach, you then going, right, what's the very first step for that? What's the first action that will lead to that? And getting that so it's clear for them. And again, them coming up with the kind of actions, putting a plan in place to take action on what they've decided to do, and then also giving opportunity for a feedback loop. So, right, once you know that one thing, let's try it for one day, see how that goes. Give me some feedback on how that went. If it doesn't work, no problem. We can try another suggestion. It's, I think, breaking it down. So when you've got to that point where they've got that point that they're going to do, breaking that down even more, however simple that might be, creating an open kind of loop of feedback, but then also making sure that they don't feel like that's a pass or fail, and so they can be open to it going forward, and closing down the time that they're going to be doing it for. For example, if, I don't know, let's say it's tracking and you go, right, I want to, right, the suggestion is tracking. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Great. Cool. What's the first next step? Well, get the app. What's the next step? Right, learn how to use it. Okay, go off and track for 7 days. You'll probably find a hell of a lot of people fail in that. So maybe it's just one day, maybe it's just doing breakfast, maybe, I think breaking it down even more after those stages, and then sense checking as well. Like once you've got that right, or anything that could come up now in you applying that and doing that. Again, just because I've come up with it, I think you've got to break it down, sense check it, and then move forward. If there are any barriers, overcome them, so forth and so forth. So basically, it's about reapplying that process you've done in a little bit more detail and broken down. Anything you'd add? I think so. That's it. That's it, Anthony. It's bloody it, isn't it? You there? Are you taking? Yeah.
No, I'm reading someone else's
Can
thing.
you pay attention, please?
Hey?
Can you pay attention?
What do you want?
That's it.
No.
Right, we are a fantastic day, Anthony.
None of you.
Goodbye.